Good morning. My name is Fatima. I am co-founder of Collective 365, and we are so excited to have Calvin, aka Insurance Bay, here to talk to us about all things insurance. And I am really looking forward to this conversation. And I was speaking briefly to Calvin before we started that what kind of got me interested was I saw on Facebook, somebody was like, I want to have, you want crackers? Give me 1 second, okay? I have a 2-year-old that you can't see, but she's right here. Do you want to say hi?
No.
No? Okay, that's cool. And somebody was on Facebook and saying like, oh, I have an ex-wife that I have kids with, and I want to take an insurance policy out on her. And people were weighing in on like, was that appropriate? And it sounded kind of like, are you trying to like kill her or think she's going to die? And it was just all these different things that came up in the chats. And so it made me think about how we need to have more conversations, particularly in Black and Brown communities, about insurance. So my first question to you, well, before we get started, can you kind of tell us a little bit about your background? How did you get into this profession? And, you know, what, we'll leave it at that. Why you got into this profession, and then a little bit about your background before I like get into my juicy question.
Okay, cool. So again, Calvin Royster, aka Insurance Bay, like you said, I appreciate the shout out on that. As far as how I got into insurance, it's actually pretty simple. I was about 18 at the time, and I was serving 2 for 20s at Applebee's, and I had got into an accident, totaled my car. And from there, I needed some wheels, obviously. And the claims adjuster came to my house to basically assess the damages done to my car. And their car was wrapped with another insurance company's logo. And the 18-year-old me is like, hey, if I get a job with an insurance company, maybe I'll get a car. So I ended up applying at a local company that was hiring like crazy and got the job and ended up stumbling into insurance and did that for a little bit. Did that for a few
years. I have to interrupt you. Did you get a car?
I did get a car, but not from the company. No, that part didn't work out. So that didn't work, but I fell into the industry and I didn't really see myself in it for the long term. I thought it was just a cool job. It helped me get on my feet, started my professional career. And from there, I did some different sales with some different companies, different insurance sales with different companies. So I was able to try different parts of insurance because there's so many different types of insurances out there. So I got my experience doing that. And then 4 years ago, I decided to go independent, become my own broker, and start my own agency to where I could actually service all of these different types of insurance.
Okay, so I'm going to imagine that there are other people like me who are like, what are all the types of insurance, number one? And then I would love to know how you got to that place of like becoming your own entity or being a broker. And Anderson, if you have any questions, jump in.
Yeah.
Sure. So I mean, I personally sell probably a little over a dozen types of insurances. There's a lot. Pretty much anything that you can think of that's an important part of your life can be insured, whether it be like, for example, I had somebody call me that needs insurance for their wedding, right? So a special events policy. You can protect anything that needs protection. So whether it be your income needs protection through disability insurance, or your home needs insurance, or you need to protect your home. So you got homeowners insurance, your vehicles, dental, vision. I mean, there's so many different types. It's so broad. And I think that in the simplest form, if we just understand that insurance is meant to indemnify us, meaning that it's meant to put us in the position that we were before the claim, I think we can better understand that, how insurance moves and operates. So, if you think about a car, for example, if you're insuring a Toyota and you total the car, you're not going to get a check for the value of a Mercedes. You're going to get the value of a Toyota. Or if you have $1 million policy on a home, if the home is only worth $300,000 to rebuild, you're not going to get $1 million. You're going to get the value was to replace the home. So if we just understand that that's how insurance works and that's the intent of it, I think we can pretty easily grasp all the different types that are out there.
Anderson, did you have a question?
Cool. I did not. I'm sorry. I'm listening to this while I'm working as well. So, no, not right now. But this is a great conversation.
Yeah. Okay. I saw that you unmuted, and so I didn't know if you were like trying to jump in. So I'm gonna keep going with my questions. But if anytime you wanna add a question, please feel free.
Definitely.
Yeah. Oh, and the other part of your question, how I became a broker. So as far as that goes, I went to, so I had my last position, my last role prior to me being a broker was I worked for an entry-level position at a life insurance company, and they worked essentially with senior clientele. And that was a cool experience. I was working in DC a lot, you know. Ironically, they sent me to Southeast DC and Northeast DC for whatever reason. Sure, you can imagine why. But either way, that's where I was working. And I learned pretty quickly that there was a lot of opportunity for education in our community when it came to life insurance. And it was the conversations that we were having later on in the situation, which made things get a little bit more difficult and challenging for us to really do all that insurance could do for us. So when I got to the point where I was, you know, working day in and day out in the city and seeing a lot of us, and I couldn't help a lot of us, I was like, I got to do something different. This isn't working for me. I want to be able to help my people to the best of my ability. And so I did some research, took a step back, and found, you know, the avenue to become a broker. First, learned what a broker was, and then learned, you know, what the necessary steps were to become one and be able to offer all the options that I have today. That's kind of how that all played out for me.
So one of the things that came up for me when you were talking was folks in our community, Black and brown folks, not, I guess, understanding what life insurance was and all of its benefits. And can you speak more to that as far as when should somebody get life insurance and what does that process look like? And, you know, because there are so many options, I feel like, for life insurance. Like I was telling you earlier, like literally almost once a week, somebody is on my LinkedIn trying to sell me life insurance.
Exactly. Yeah, I mean, like you said, there is a lot of different types of life insurance, you know, depending on your needs and what your goals are. I mean, it can get very elaborate. But to simplify it, you can get insurance, life insurance, as soon as 14 days. So the earlier, the better, because life insurance is based off of your health and your age, primarily. So if we know that, we want to do it when we are healthiest and when we are as early as possible, because it's going to allow us to do the same thing at an affordable cost. So that's one of the things I realized when I was in the field was it wasn't so much that we weren't getting the coverage, because there was a study that came out, I want to say it's called the Insurance Barometer, came out this year. And we actually, as a community, buy life insurance 56% more likely to buy life insurance. We're doing it after the fact. Like I get calls from people that are basically on their deathbed or really later on in life, and the options available to us and what the life insurance can do for us at that point and at that stage become a bit challenging and limiting in that sense. So I would encourage, you know, earlier on the earlier, the better. And that's why I like to work with the millennial market, because it's important that I feel like we have the opportunity to make a huge shift, and not just in life insurance, but speaking to life insurance, we have an opportunity to really change the game. And if we have access to the education, we have access to the resources that maybe generations before us may not have had, if we take advantage of those and leverage what life insurance can do, and you know, I can dive into that in a second, we can actually really change the scope of our community, because I do believe it's one of the underutilized tools in wealth building.
Okay, so tell me more about that. Like, what are because when I think of life insurance, I just think about like, okay, if I die, I just want to make sure that my husband and my kid are covered and like they're not trying to worry about that part in addition to grief.
Yeah.
That's the only kind of frame that I have. But
Okay.
I'm really interested to hear when you talk about it's a underutilized tool for wealth building.
Yeah. So as far as that goes, I mean, there's multiple types, right? So we've got the term insurance, which I think is what a lot of people talk about. That's just very much, it's a policy that's going to cover your life for a fixed period of time. At the end of that period of time, it's as good as expired because it goes up so dramatically in cost. Most people can't afford it. So they just let it lapse. And then you're starting over 20 or 30 years later. The other option is permanent insurance. This is going to be it's going to cover you for your entire life. And in that, there's a few additional benefits. One of them is you get to have access to what's called cash value. This is where we can start talking about building equity. This is where we start talking about getting a little bit more creative in our life insurance strategies. So when you are paying into your life insurance policy on the permanent side, you can, every month, a piece of what you're paying goes into this cash value account. Think of it almost like a savings account. As you pay, over time is going to grow and accumulate. It's going to get interest and some other creative ways to help it grow. But either way, over time, you're going to be building this equity, which you can then in turn use to do things like supplement retirement, use for business capital, use to consolidate personal debt. You can use it for college funding. You can use it for pretty much whatever you want to use it for, and literally become your own bank. So instead of going to the bank to finance a car that's going to charge you 7 to 8% if you have good credit, a lot higher if you have bad credit, and they may or may not approve you because of debt to income ratios. They may or may not approve you because of what you have on your credit report. You can go to your own life insurance policy. Call us up. We'll cut the check for, if you've had the funds in your account to go ahead and buy the car cash. So it's doing things like this that can help us if we understand how to use it and we're positioning ourselves appropriately. We can use these type of things. We're becoming our own bank to leverage opportunities that we do have. So things like that are a lot easier and affordable to do in our younger years than if we're 50 or 60 trying to do this. Not to say you can't do it, it's just going to cost you a lot more. And if you can do it when you're in your 20s and 30s, it's a lot more options available to you. Because not only, I think the biggest thing that people overlook when it comes to the life insurance is we get excited about the concepts, but then we wait till we're in our 50s and 60s and try to go do it. But we may have had a health challenge or two along the way, and now we can't qualify for it because you can't buy life insurance with your money. You buy it with your health. You have to get qualified for all these things I'm talking about. So you want to do it when you are healthy enough to get it. And then, of course, your money will facilitate it.
So what about folks? So we know that Black and brown folks, disproportionately experience health issues, right? Whether that's because we have a lack of trust for medical professionals, or for like Black women, we go to medical professionals and they dismiss our very valid concerns. And we're just having the access, like affordability, right? Or having things in our neighborhood. So myriad of reasons why. What would you say for that person? Like I may be 33, but I've already maybe had ovarian cancer, or I already have a chronic illness. Like, what are my options?
So the good thing as a broker, I've got options for everybody. Now they vary based off of health. And sometimes it's a matter of doing we put a strategy together in steps, right? So maybe we do something very simple that we know you can get approved for right now. It may not be the ideal, it may not cover everything that you wanted to right now, it may not have all those bells and whistles, but it's something. And then from there, we put a plan and say in 9 months, these places will be available or will offer us some options. In 12 months, we have some options available to you. In 24, whatever it may be, we put together that game plan. And that's something that I do have to exercise pretty often because, like you said, we do have challenges within our community, some of it direct, some of it indirect from things from other factors in our community that make it that present an obstacle, I should say, when it comes to getting insurance. Because again, if we're looking at health, we got to look at both sides of it. So insurance companies are saying, hey, you know, we're not every insurance company is a big fan of diabetes, high blood pressure, or hypertension, high cholesterol. Mental health is another thing that they look at. We look at body mass indexes, you know, height versus weight. These are things that they look at, and they can grade on kind of hard. So on the flip side of that, though, we've got to look at being in food deserts. We've got to understand PTSD within our own community from the conditions of living in some of the impoverished cities that we may be in. So we've got to factor all of these variables that are reality to us within our community, and line that up against, you know, what life insurance companies are doing. And I think the best way to, I guess, combat, you know, what they're holding us to, I guess, their underwriting, is to have as many options as available, and just being able to navigate through that with the proper planning. And that's kind of where, you know, my passion became strong, because I realized, okay, I'm going to need the right, not only a lot of options, but the right options for our people, because there are going to be some challenges there, because we do have some common themes as far as health goes. We may not have the trust with the doctor, so we may not be checking up on our health. We may not be, you know, which is also another thing that the life insurance companies look at. So hey, there's a lot to it, but that's why, you know, I'm here, and I want to make sure that I help people navigate through, because it's not always going to look the same for maybe us versus some other communities.
So I think it was really encouraging for me to hear that there's still options, right? Because at first when you said it, I was like, oh my gosh. But are there any other like tips or tricks for folks who are trying to get, like, aside from like obviously go to the doctor, get in as young as possible, is there anything else folks should be weary of? Like, I know sometimes folks say like you shouldn't be paying the person, and different things like that. And so are there any things that red flags that people should be aware of? Because like I said, if they're like me and getting kind of bombarded with like inquiries and trying to decide, like, should I go with Insurance Bay or should I go with New York Life? Like, you know, like, what should I do? What would you recommend?
You're talking about in reference to like health challenges, or?
I'm talking about just in like securing insurance. Like, I guess for me,
Okay.
You were saying there's different options, but like, what stood out to me was like hearing you have a commitment to looking holistically of like, yes, you may have insurance, but like, how does that fit into like food deserts? How does that fit into the PTSD from racial trauma? Like, I guess I was trying not to like make it a leading question, but I'll just make it a leading question. Like, do you recommend that like a person of color seek out somebody that's a person of color to advocate for them? Or do you think that there should be certain things that they should be looking out for? Like, say if they're already working with somebody, should there be questions that they should be asking to say like, is this the best plan for me? Or is this just kind of what you want to do because you do it for everybody else and it's just easy? Does that make sense?
Yeah, I'm with you now. Yeah, so honestly, of course, I would definitely encourage you to, familiarity is a huge thing. Relatability is a huge thing. So working with somebody that looks like you normally works in your good, I would like to say, because we are held to a standard as agents and professionals as well. So we get to the best of both worlds as far as being able to advise you in a fiduciary sense, to where we have your best interest first, but also we have the firsthand experience. A lot of us have families in the community as well, so we understand. We had stories of mama and them in our community, so we get to work with that chip on our shoulder in a sense. So we're able to be a little more sensitive to the different challenges we may have. I would say alongside that though, and this is as unbiased as I can be, I would definitely encourage you to work with somebody that has multiple options, just because there's simply an agent that only has one option simply won't be able to do on a large scale enough. If they're not going to have enough leeway in their underwriting to be able to really serve in the full capacity that will need for solutions for on a large scale. And I can say that because I was that agent. There's simply the underwriting does not always favor us. And if they may be favorable over here, they're not over there. You know, another one is, and this of course is not exclusive to our community, but marijuana smokers. Like this is something that's more and more common, just in general in society in general. But it's one of those things where some companies are not there with it yet. And if, you know, we're talking inner city, we're talking, you know, some of the distressed parts of our community, and in some cases, not even distressed parts of the community. And we're just talking about marijuana usage in general. This is something that's been another barrier that we have to overcome as agents. So it's one of those things where having an agent that has at least a few options will give you better opportunities to find not only coverage, but the right type of coverage. Because again, going back to my what we shared earlier about you know, it not being so much an issue of getting coverage, but when we're getting and what we're getting. You know, sometimes agents only have one option to give you, and that's what they're gonna say. But the life insurance is so broad, and there's so many different ways to solve a problem that it really does pay to have somebody that can that can show you multiple options.
All right, so that was really, really informative, even though I have life insurance. Never learned too much. I want to circle back to something that you said earlier about like special events insurance and things like that. Can you talk about some of the types of insurance that maybe like are less talked about and like why, or and particularly like ones that would benefit Black and brown folks, like that maybe we should be thinking about? I just would be interested if you have any like anecdotes or recommendations.
Sure. I think one of the ones that's left on is disability insurance, because essentially that protects our income. You know, if you look at, especially in today's climate where there's a lot of gig workers, there's a lot of self-employed, 1099 contractors, there's not necessarily that guarantee from the employer anymore. Everybody wants to, you know, 1099 people and not provide those benefits necessarily. If my point is, if we're sliding more into positions to where we have to create our income, it's heavily performance-based. You know, if I'm going to eat today, I've got to get in this car and drive and drop people off, or I've got to go deliver food, or I got to do whatever your gig is. If that's the case, if something was to happen to us by accident or sickness, depending on the type of policy you set up for disability, we are able to get up to like 70%, some cases up to 100% of our monthly income replaced. Some cases they'll do lump sums. There's a lot of different options when it comes to it, but if we just understand that disability is there to aid us in the event that we're not able to get up and perform the job because something happened because of accident or sickness, we are now able to have the peace of mind that our company is not going to sink. We're still able to pay our rent. We're still able to get by while we're recovering from whatever happened. So that's a very real one, and it's actually pretty affordable.
Yeah, that happened to me. So I was working for a university, and they gave leave, but I had disability insurance with Northwestern, and that helped me.
Yeah.
During the time where they were like, okay, we're not doing this anymore. So yeah, it definitely matters. It makes a big difference.
Absolutely. Another one is general liability is really big. So this is more so for business owners and entrepreneurs. I say this one is big, not only because it helps, of course, protect against your general concerns or the broad concerns you may have as far as operational day-to-day stuff, but it also provides a lot of additional opportunities to generate more income for your company. And this is what I mean. So I've had businesses come to me that landed contracts, whether it be cleaning contracts, whether it be contracts with local, like a YMCA or whatever it may be. But in order for them to get the contract and secure it, they had to fulfill the insurance requirement of general liability. So these are one of those things where, you know, you having something like this gives you the protection, A, but B, it's going to allow you to then go leverage that for more opportunities, because now you can go get those contracts that you were wanting to get, or now you can go even entertain it because you have the coverage that they're going to require you to have anyway.
Right. Okay.
So yeah, general liability as well.
Nice. Did not know about that. Okay. Any others?
I would say the same other ones that are slept on. I think most people get the auto, the home, the renters. No, I would say this as well. With health insurance, I would say having that at some capacity, whether it be through your employer or your spouse's policy. Just again, thinking about because I work with a lot of entrepreneurs early on, or the gig workers. They may not have benefits from a job. Health insurance is another topic that I feel like, it gets kind of swept under the rug because we try to get by without it, or we just don't really know what's out there. We're either paying too much, or we're kind of stuck without it. So I would say health insurance, there are a lot of options out there, whether you're going through the Affordable Care Act or Obamacare, or you're finding a private insurer to get you some kind of health coverage. You do have options, and it doesn't have to be, it can be affordable. It can be affordable, just depending on how your setup is and how often you need to use the insurance.
Cool. Yeah, thank you for plugging health insurance. I think that, yes, I would say not all folks in the Black community and Brown community, because we're not a monolith, but right. there is, especially I would say, a generational thing. Certain generations are very like anti-doctors, and then that has like trickled down, right? So I think it's really important, especially like the fact that we're in a pandemic, realizing that, your health matters. Like, it's so important. And sometimes we wait, and it's like the people who are in the hospital with COVID and are like, oh, can I get the vaccine now? And it's like, it's not really how it works. So I'm glad you were able to like kind of highlight like, hey, there are options for you. And like, it doesn't have to be kind of like all an employer or nothing, because I don't have the employer or I don't have a spouse who I can hop on with. Exactly. I would love to kind of know a little bit more about you, as far as like your services, what you offer. Like, if somebody's listening, kind of like, if you want this time to kind of like tell us about your business, sell yourself, however you want to call it. But I would love to like hear more about like why you, because I think looking at your Facebook, like for me, I was like, oh man, I wish I had known this, known about you. So if you could share some of that, that would be really great.
Sure. So essentially, I'm a full service insurance broker. So it's simply, I have options for options. And so, a lot of people, they'll come to me either because they've been declined or they're having a tough time getting insurance. And that basically is where I add my value. I'm able to show you all these different options. And because I have them, I'm pretty informed on what's out there. And so we are able to talk about the different options. And so it's not just getting you something, but it's making sure that I can go to sleep good tonight because I showed you the best of what's out there. Not just anything, but the best of what's out there. So you get that. Also, I take care about people. So I had a really big client appreciation event a couple of weeks ago, just to show my appreciation for people that have done business with me. And so that was fun. And then of course I do the insurance bay character, which has been fun for me as well. But I find that, people find humor in that, but it also allows me to educate as well while making you laugh, hopefully. So, but that's it. As far as, the insurance professional side of it, I'll be able to show you a lot of options and ranges, and literally be the one-stop shop. The goal is to be not just a state farm to, put a company out there, but think of it as an entity that you can go and do all your insurance needs and be a name in the household name in the Black community.
Yes. That's for that. I love it. Yes. I don't have any other questions. Like, you answered everything that I wanted. Was there something that you wanted to leave with the people?
I'll say this. I know that There's, sometimes, and going back to what you said about generations, I understand that some of us and our families have a side eye at insurances, as insurance companies, and rightfully so. I get it. If you look at, Malcolm X and his father, I'm sure you know who Malcolm X is. His father was a big advocate for Marcus Garvey and his mission in liberating people and getting us back to Africa. And in that, his father was actually murdered by the Black Knights, which is basically the Klansmen with the Black Hoods. They essentially tied him up, laid him on a train track, and I'm sure you can get the rest. He had two insurance policies, a small one and a large one. He had a large family. The mother was a stay-at-home mother. She was a homemaker. So obviously the father was the sole provider of the house. When he passed, of course, that put a lot of strain on the family. Now, the first insurance company that did the small policy, they paid. The second company did not pay. They said he killed himself. Now, I don't know what activist is going to tie themselves and lay themselves on a track to get run over by a train, but there's the politics of it. So that's just one story within our community that I understand why there's some distrust there. That may be an extreme, but at the same time, there's cases within our families to where insurance companies didn't do right by us coming up. Part of it was lack of education from the agents on us, that's us. And then part of it is not understanding what we have and not communicating, because we're also talking about a generation that kept everything with them to the grave. So understanding both sides of that, I would just encourage you to ask questions about insurance, connect with an insurance professional. I understand there may be a bitter taste about insurance companies within the family, mom and them, badmouth insurance companies left and right. So you may shy away from talking to insurance agents, almost like doctors to an extent. But I would encourage you that, and this is a movement that I'm pushing. This is my passion, is to help educate us on what insurance can do, all the nuances of it. And if we utilize it appropriately and we plan it appropriately, we can actually have a much better relationship and experience with it and set ourselves up from the different pitfalls that life may bring us.
That was an excellent kind of bookend, because I think so many times when we, I'll speak from my own experience. Sometimes when you talk to folks who are trying to help, but in helping, there has to be some acknowledgement of the wrong, right? And so I really appreciate you being able to, and I think that goes back to kind of benefits of working with folks that look like you, right? Right. Because it's not just about come, spend your coins with me, but it's hey, I understand, and we can work out a plan that feels right for you. I can answer your questions. It's not just me talking at you and telling you what to do. And I think that makes all the difference. Like you said, it's about relationship building, and within relationships, hopefully comes trust. So, Anderson, do you have any questions before we say peace out?
No, but Calvin, you did a great job of kind of breaking everything down. I already have life insurance, but you just gave some good information, to kind of add on to that. So great job.
Yeah. Thank you. Definitely will be sharing your information with folks, Calvin. This was really, really, really great. Thank you again. If you are tuning in on YouTube, please make sure you subscribe so you don't miss our upcoming Lunch and Learns and or After 5 series. If you're interested in becoming a member of Collective 365, please visit the website. You can join for free. Our goal is to raise $35,000 for grant funding, and we need you. Whether you have $0 to give or $100,000 to give, you are needed in this movement so that we can create platforms that celebrate and invest and center Black and Brown folks. If you have questions about what we're doing, you can also shoot us an email at collective365info@gmail.com. Be sure to follow us on Facebook and Instagram. Thank you for your time, Calvin. We appreciate you. And please be sure to share this message with your friends and family.
Absolutely.